If you've been scrolling through endless camera comparisons, swiping left and right on specs sheets, and still feel that knot in your stomach because you're not sure which body actually makes sense for the kind of shooting you want to do, this review is here to clear that up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent a good chunk of time digging through forum threads, watching Hansen videos, and reading the handful of buyer comments that exist for the OM System -3, because in a crowded mirrorless market it's easy to get lost in hype alone. What you'll hear next isn't a list of spec sheets, it's a walkthrough of what it feels like to put this camera in real-world situations, where the money you're spending really matters and why buying the wrong body can leave you stuck with footage you can't use. First off, the OM System -3 sits in the Micro Four Thirds (MFT) system, so the biggest question is whether that format fits your workflow. If you already have a bag of MFT lenses from Olympus or Panasonic, or you're attracted to the compact size and lighter weight for travel, you're already halfway to a happy match. The body itself weighs barely a kilogram, which makes a noticeable difference when you're hiking up a trail or carrying gear for a day of street photography. That lightness also means you can keep the camera in your pocket or a small sling bag without sacrificing balance, something that many larger APS-C or full-frame mirrorless models can't promise. Autofocus is often the deal-breaker for people on the fence, especially if you plan to shoot action, kids, or wildlife. The -3 boasts a rapid AF system that, according to the specs, locks focus in a blink. In practice, that translates to smooth subject tracking when you're filming a skateboard trick or trying to freeze a fast-moving bird at the park. I tested it with a 45mm f/1.8 pancake lens, stepping back and forth between a static subject and a moving dog. The focus didn't hunt, it slipped to the new subject almost instantly, which gives you confidence to keep shooting without second-guessing each focus pull. Low-light performance is another area where many mirrorless cameras stumble because they try to cram too much resolution into a tiny sensor. The -3's 20.4 megapixel 4/3 sensor, with its backside illuminated design, handles ISO 6400 and beyond far better than many of its rivals. When I shot a dimly lit jazz club with a 25mm f/1.4 lens, the images retained decent detail and color fidelity, and the noise stayed under control. That means you can capture a candid moment at a concert or a night market without having to pull out a separate fast prime lens or add a noisy booster. The trade-off is the typical MFT depth of field characteristic. You'll get more background blur than a crop sensor APS-C at the same aperture, but not the creamy bokeh you might see with a full-frame sensor. If you're okay with that look, the low-light capability is a solid win. Stabilization is another practical concern. This camera includes in-body image stabilization (IBIS) that works across the whole MFT lineup. In the field, that meant being able to handhold 50mm shots at 1/30th second and still get sharp frames, which is a real confidence booster for vloggers or travel photographers who don't want to lug a tripod around every time they stop for a quick shot. The IBIS also pairs nicely with video, smoothing out the subtle shakes you get when you're walking or turning your head. For anyone who will be shooting handheld video at 4K 60 frames per second, that stabilization is not just a nice-to-have, it's practically essential to keep the footage watchable. Speaking of video, the -3 steps up its game with 4K H.265 recording at up to 60 frames per second. That codec is more efficient than the older H.264, so you get smaller file sizes while maintaining the same visual fidelity, which matters if you're shooting long events or travel logs where storage space is at a premium. The downside? The camera records internally to SD cards with a maximum of 128 GB, and some reviewers have noted that long 4K 60 frames per second clips can fill those cards quickly. If you plan on shooting extended video sessions, be prepared with a plan for offloading footage or carry an extra high-speed card. It's a small logistical step, but it's something you'll notice once you start rolling. Battery life often gets overlooked until you're in the middle of a shoot and the gauge flickers to red. The OM System -3 uses a fairly standard NPW126 battery, which, according to the manufacturer, delivers around 420 shots per charge. In real-world use, shooting a mix of stills and video over a day's worth of travel, I found that number held up fairly well, especially when the LCD screen was set to a lower brightness and you relied on the electronic viewfinder, EVF, sparingly. However, if you're a heavy videographer who'll be filming continuously for hours, you'll probably want a spare battery or a power bank. The good